There we go. And it says recording on my side. There we go. There we are. Thank you guys for joining me tonight in this, and let's get together and talk a little bit about our journey that we've had through the DLL program. I mean, it's been kind of interesting, but I figured we might as well go through a little introductions and make a quick synopsis about ourselves. My name is Nick Skelton from Texas. I live in Florida and I'm finishing up the DLL program. And that's Boudreaux that just barked. Sorry. And so whoever wants to go next.
All right, I'm John Lowe. I'm an assistant director at Baylor University in learning systems. I've been doing this for 18 months as well with Nick and Chris. So glad to see you at the end of the road.
And my name's Chris Woods. I work for a school district in Waco, Texas. I'm actually not in the classroom. I'm housed at a 5th and 6th grade school and work what used to be called in instructional technology. But now we're called innovation and learning. So I do instructional coaching with teachers. Excited to be headed towards the end of this master's program.
So both you guys are involved in IT and I'm not. So I came into this program basically as a hockey coach that wanted to get into the prep schools by having being able to teach first and then take over as a hockey coach on one of the teams. And after talking with some hockey coaches, they said, just get your master's degree and that will get your foot in the door when getting into the prep schools. And lo and behold, I never thought that I would more so put that to the back burner and put education up to the front. I've since the time this has happened, I became a paraprofessional working with exceptional students in Florida, and it has been so much fun. And I remember when I got my undergrad, I did not want to do education. I wanted, sports medicine. I wanted to be in the lab. And now I've been kicking myself every day on why didn't I do that? Because getting alternative certification is not as easy as they say it is. So how did you guys get involved with doing this program? What was your motivation to it?
So I want to make a distinction, Nick, because this is actually one of the, I guess, frustrations about working in my specific role is that we're not actually IT. We work with technology, and that's primarily because of the name change, but we are lead with, we are all background in classroom teachers. And so our focus in our department is instructional coaching with teachers that sometimes use technology and sometimes not, but in all cases use best instructional practices. So it involves like going in, observing a teacher, letting the teacher identify what they want to work on. A lot of times we'll video and let the teachers watch themselves teaching. And 90% of the time the teacher's like, oh my gosh, my questioning is terrible, or my pacing is terrible. My classroom management is terrible. And so then we brainstorm on what's the next step to fix those big pieces or to improve on those big pieces. And about 50% of the time, technology is involved. They want to pull in, hey, my classroom management is bad because I'm planning bad lessons using technology. And so that's when we start to pull in all of those apps. And so because it was more, people were thinking of us more as like, hey, can you help me fix my iPad or fix my printer? I'm not even trained to do that stuff. I don't even know how to do that stuff, but I do know how to use technology to make effective, help students be effective and teachers being effective at teaching and students be effective in learning. Long answer to your question, but what was happening was that at the end of, I forget, it has been a long road, so I forget at what point, but I just felt like I needed to add some more tools to my toolbox. I was like, I feel like I've kind of maxed out and just relying more on my kind of like own skills and what I think is right. And I really wanted a more global, or, you know, a more of a bigger perspective of the world of education and how to improve myself in my specific role. That's kind of how I got the ball rolling, and I'm very thankful that that we've come this far. So.
Dude, I appreciate you, explaining on the IT stuff and where you were at. I mean, obviously, again, like I said, I'm green on all this stuff, and that was something that I didn't realize too, is that there were people like you, Chris, that sit in the back and essentially critique to help educators educate. And I think that's really cool. And that's something that I think it was probably maybe a quarter of the way through the program too, where I was like, oh, that sounds fun. And I remember having to go to a professional development meeting in my district, which is a fairly, you guys heard me tell this several times, it's fairly affluent, right? But the lack of common sense when it comes to technology, I mean, it's in sheer boredom of sitting back there where, I'm sitting here watching this going, can she hurry up? Can I take control of this, please? But I think that's really awesome, and and that's really cool. And it's such a different avenue than, like I said, from what I had expected people to have. John, what do you got?
So my story is more on the IT side of things, and kind of coming at it from a different direction. My role was part of a larger group called Online Teaching and Learning Services. But a few years ago, we split into two separate groups, Learning Systems and Learning Design. And I'll lead up the Learning Systems side. So I am very much focused on the systems and the tools and the resources. My group's the one that runs Baylor's learning management system and our Kaltura video streaming service, and all those kind of tools and resources that teachers use. But the one thing that I don't really have a lot of background in is how people are actually using those tools, or how people should actually use those tools. Because I'm so focused on the actual system itself, I was a lot less focused on the best use cases for these sort of things and what should people be doing with them. And to be fair, that's normally the learning design side of the house handling that. That's kind of more, it sounds like, where Chris is at his school district than where I am in mine. But I had a need or a want really to just dig into that and look at that a little bit more. And I think that was one of the things that kind of appealed to me about this particular program, is I can still deal with the technology, but I'm really looking at effective use cases for, teaching and learning more than anything else there. So that's what really drew me to the DLL program. And I like the fact that it is incorporates both learning and leading. As a relatively new leader in my organization, that was important, that some of that sort of institutional and organizational change components were a part of this program as well. So I really liked that aspect of it when I was kind of reading through this course descriptions, originally planning, trying to look for a program that seemed like it would fit. And then in addition, Baylor has really been stepping up into creating a lot of new online grad programs. So I was like, well, I could do an in-person program, or I could actually look for an online program. So I get to experience as a student what my team is helping facilitate for teachers and other students at our university. So that's why I decided on this particular program. And I think it's been a good match for that. So got to experience it as a learner and see things as a teacher would see, which was honestly some of my struggle. I am not a classroom teacher. I haven't been a classroom teacher for 19 years. As the last time I was in a classroom, that was a long time ago, pre-ubiquitous internet access. We had one dial-up connection in our building at the time, and so it's a totally different world as far as the technology in the classroom goes. So that has been one of my little struggles with this program, is coming into it not from a educational classroom teacher type perspective, trying to figure out, okay, so what is my innovation plan going to be if I were a classroom teacher, but also still try to tie it into really, no, what can I use at my institution to still make it effective? So that was always a little bit of a struggle, but it's been good and I've enjoyed it.
That's good. And it's funny because all of our backgrounds that we have are also completely different, yet this program is utilizing all of them. I don't know if you guys I don't know if y'all tell anybody that you're doing your master's or not, but I'll mention it to people every now and then, and they say, what are you getting it in? And it's like, well, it's digital learning and leadership. And all of a sudden they kind of take a step back and they go, like, online school digital stuff, like anything, I'm like anything technology related that has to do with education and making sure that it gets pushed through. And again, they take a step back and go, whoa, that sounds amazing. And then they follow it up like we've heard all year long. And what a great time to be doing that. Time. So why don't you guys share a little bit, if you can, about what you think since October of 2019 when we started.
I can directly relate it to my work situation, and kind of what's the term Hrabnik has always used about changing direction with our pivot. Like there's a huge pivot that just took place. So I'll speak to my innovation plan. So working with teachers, I wanted to center it on professional learning, working with adult learners, and just saying if I invest there, then the impact will be greater for student learning, which is, my bread and butter and my passion, all that stuff. And so like you were saying, Nick, like so many, and being a part of them and actually leading some of these professional development sessions that are just like, why are we teaching or working with teachers in the exact opposite way that we are asking them to work with their students? Yeah. And so that was kind of like an avenue of like, this is where I can make an impact. So looking at professional learning, how can we be innovative? How can we apply some of these new terms that we're learning, like COVA and divergent learning and personalized learning, differentiation, all of that good stuff, not to students, but to teachers. And so I got a couple of teachers on board that they were going to completely ignore the mandated scope and sequence for the 2021-2022 school year. So we were going to spend the rest of 2020, spring of 2020, we were going to go through a blended learning kind of like discussion group. So we were going to look at definitions, look at examples, and we were actually going to build like these PBL units together that incorporated blended learning. That's the innovation plan. COVID hits and in 2020, and these two teachers not only leave our school, but both of them left education altogether. They like couldn't hang anymore. They were just like, hey, we've got better things to do, different situations that are not as stressful. So I was kind of left like this, oh my gosh, like am I gonna have to fake my innovation plan for the rest of this program? But took it to a pivot. So not thinking of DLL at the moment, but the innovation and learning team in my school district, the 12 of us, were like, okay, what do teachers need? Once we shut down, like what do teachers need? And so we started offering these webinar sessions. We sent out surveys. Teachers were writing in. We built some like these webinars that were fully interactive, and we started pumping out. We were hosting probably 10 to 12 webinars a week, and wanted to offer so many because the topics were so different based on what teachers wanted. We were facilitating discussion groups with teachers and all that. And so summer hit, and we're like, let's take this and run with this. And that's when I started to apply this to my innovation plan, and really looking at what can we do district wide, because we found there was a lot of success there, but there was also some things to learn from. How as a district can we move forward with this? Teachers get to pick have a lot of choice in how they grow professionally, and how can we not do these massive meetings where one person stands at the front and goes through a PowerPoint? How can we make it more interactive? How can we, make it authentic so that they're leaving with something that they created that they can implement the very next day in class. That ownership piece, because they're getting to choose, they have more ownership, and also wanting to do more blended learning. So we're gonna have a technology piece that you do on your own, but also innovation and learning. We're gonna get pinged or emailed or something letting us know that you completed kind of like the digital portion of this of a course, and then we get to follow up. So we have support for that teacher during implementation when they're actually in the classroom. So we get to co-teach with them. We can do reflective questioning, see how it's going. If there is a positive side to what COVID has done to the world of education, this is a small example of that. I think I'm really excited about it.
Chris, you talking about this stuff makes me want to move to your school district.
It's not perfect. We got a lot of frustrated teachers too, but I think this is something that at least the team that I'm a part of, we're trying to improve that side of for teachers. So we care about them. I still remember, it wasn't that long ago where I was, still in the classroom, and can still remember all the challenges. So
yeah, absolutely. And if the teachers are happy, the kids are happy. And that's what it's all down to. So thanks Chris for sharing that. So John, what do you got, man?
For my world, the COVID response in the spring was very different than our COVID response in the fall. In the spring, when everything happened and everybody went off to spring break, and then our faculty were told, hey, you're going to be teaching the rest of your classes totally online for the rest of the semester. That was very much for us a let's do everything you can to get by kind of mentality. We did tons of seminars on how to use the basics of our learning management system, how to use Zoom, how to use WebEx, all those sort of, just give you the bare minimum tools to get by. I kind of use the analogy of we were taking some faculty who were kind of already at 0 to 10 miles an hour and trying to bring them up to like 30 miles an hour. So we kind of stopped the advanced pedagogical type focus of our trainings and our assistance for faculty at that point, and just tried to get the mass of everybody who may or may not have been doing anything with their learning management system before up to speed on that. But that all changed over the summer. And over the summer, we were able to shift gears a little bit, because at that point, we had a baseline. Every single faculty member at our institution was at least operating at 30 miles an hour. So at that point, we could then take them and get them up to highway speeds. And we started introducing a few new technology tools. We implemented some classroom capture solutions, try to plan on how we're going to do blended instruction, where students are certain days in the classroom, certain days attending online, and what that really looks like. Do you try to do that all synchronously, or do you do a true blended environment where it's asynchronous, a lot of it? So, online discussions, a lot of the things that we're really learning in this program how to do, particularly like when we built our course this summer, that our professional training course online, at least mine was, that was like, okay, yeah, this is great, because I'm actually building something in this program that I want my faculty to be able to use and go through and learn how to use these things and be effective. Not to mention, they're now seeing a good example of how it can be done in a 5-week period, to do on their own. So, that was kind of the thing for us is, the spring was one thing, but fall was something totally different, and it was really a good experience to do. And being, we've talked about being in this program was very much right place, right time kind of thing. When we started in spring of 2019, or excuse me, fall of 2019, we had no clue this was coming. And then suddenly, just a few months later, bam, here we are. Everything is going online. And here we are in a degree program teaching us how to be effective educators online. And that was really cool. Or not even online, but just to use technology in an effective way to reach students who you might not be reaching. And all of those things that we thought about and talked about in class, and everybody, proposed little ideas and theories, they were actually able to start implementing most of them right away because of the
Yeah.
need and the necessity, and districts scrambling, most districts, at least Nick, scrambling to do things, in an innovative way, and try to reach the students. And that was really cool. So, this was a really timely program for us to be in.
It really was. It all worked out. But John, I got to ask you, man, since you're in post-secondary education, all right. First off, because this is what I need to know. I'm really interested in. When it came to percentage wise of all professors, TAs, whoever you have using the LMS system, how many of them were proficient before COVID? Like, if you could say percentage wise.
Yeah. So it depends on how you measure proficiency.
Yeah.
Okay. How many of them knew how to turn it on?
There you go. If I would say probably 80% of our faculty used it in some capacity. Now,
Okay.
that capacity may have been to post their syllabus, and occasionally post some announcements to their students, or use the grade book or something along those lines. But we're talking very surface level use of the system at that point. And that was roughly 80%. And the reason for that is there's no mandate, I mean, it's not like, all right, everybody needs to use this. There is no mandate for that. Well, that's what we had to change last spring when COVID hit. We couldn't just post your syllabus and post some announcements anymore. You actually had to, at the least, learn how to organize and structure your content and modules, and post discussions and lead discussions, and do online assignments and online testing and online quizzing. Just getting those sort of basic LMS type components up to speed. We were probably started out maybe at about 30-40% of faculty doing the majority of those things, but by April, we were by necessity at about 100% at that point. So some of those faculty that for years are like, I'm going to retire before I ever, use the LMS.
Yeah.
They started using the LMS all of a sudden in about a month. So, it was sometimes like pulling teeth to get them to use it, but everybody did out of necessity at that point. So, we finished the spring at 100%, and that to me is a success.
That's fantastic. And you guys you're not a small little college. It's a pretty big college for people who don't know about Baylor. I mean,
largest private Baptist university in the world.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't know how many of those there are.
I was going to say, how many are there of those?
You got DBU probably.
Oh yeah,
competing with them.
So in this program, we've gone through a number of courses now. We're here at the end, but if you had to look back and it's like, hey, this is the course when things really started coming together for you, what course was that?
That was the first course that we took with Dr. Harapnik. That's when it finally clicked, and I can't remember the course number that was.
This significant learning environments.
Significant learning environment. Okay. And
13.
Okay, there you go. So my innovation plan is completely different than anybody's, and you guys know it. Basically, for those who don't know, it was incorporating virtual reality ice hockey training into training ice hockey players. I thought it'd be something fun, but by the time I got to Harapnik's course, I was really considering changing it because everybody was doing education. I'm like, well, I don't want to do education. I kind of like this. And he talked me into keeping it. And we did a Zoom call where it seemed like it was probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours long.
Okay, hold on. Let me interrupt you. Don, did you do a Zoom call with Harapnik at all? Oh, you didn't? Because I had one too in that same course that lasted about an hour.
Yeah. Well, and
like, what are we doing? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, by the time that phone call, I had 4 sheets of paper that had notes written in the margins and on the sides and everywhere. And I have them somewhere in my room, and I still don't know what I wrote down on there. But all I know is when I finished that Zoom call with him, I I had no doubt I needed to keep going with this program. I needed to continue with this innovation project. He showed me different things here and there, do this, do that. And this was right when everything was shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And he had said, watch this, in a year, you're going to be able, because the company I have is a 501c3. And he says, in a year, the government's going to be just giving money out to anybody that wants to do something new. And I was like, oh, really? And then he kind of explained it a little bit further, but it just set my mind going, and I couldn't stop. And I know that sounds very cliche, but it's almost like I kept chasing the bunny, trying to get it. Okay, where did the bunny go? It's down this hole. Let's go down that hole. Wrong hole. Let's go back, and it's, but yeah, I think that's when it clicked for me, was that. And how about you guys? When did it click for you guys?
Well, I'll ask. Since I asked the question, I'll go ahead and answer it. For me, it was 5304, that very next course after that one, the leading organizational change one.
Yeah.
The one where we had to actually kind of come up with those vital behaviors and those measures, and how do you know if these things are working or not. That to me was the course where all of the pieces of my innovation plan kind of started actually clicking in my own head. I had already come up with a plan and, some of our earlier courses, and even kind of built upon it a little bit. And the course y'all were just talking about with Harapnik there. But it wasn't until Dr. Thibodeau's course in 5304 where I started coming up with, okay, what are those vital behaviors that I really want faculty to use or to do, or the specific things that we wanted to have them do in order to make the change that we're trying to get them to make. So that was the really part that was helpful for me. Mine was all about, deploying e-portfolio systems on our campus. I'm a systems guy, so naturally I'm looking at, we'll do a systems deployment is my plan. But it was in this course when I really focused it in on, why am I doing a systems deployment? And when we had to come up with that SMART goal, so at that one, I narrowed down that SMART goal to be new undergraduate students at Baylor University enrolled in 2 sections, because she wanted it very specific.
Yeah.
B1000, which is a particular course we have, will have an e-portfolio by the end of their first year of college. Like that specific goal is what then I built on those vital behaviors on, and then the measures to identify after that. So that was the part where it all started coming together for me. And I really started thinking, it's not just about the system, it's about what we want people to do, and what we want people to understand, and how this system is going to benefit them, and why they want to use it with their students, and all those kind of things. So that was my come together moment class.
Yeah, I agree with John that class. I think it was nice to have those two back to back, because I think Dr. H's class kind of like, it was the setup. For me, it was like, I just had coming in, and once we had the innovation plan, I knew I wanted to go big. One, because I didn't have my own classroom, so I couldn't like contain what I wanted to do just to my kids, which would have been honestly easier to do. It was like, I'm in charge of my own class, I can just do what I want. I was really relying on other people to make my innovation plan happen, And so having Dr. H like help me prep, or going through that in that conversation, okay, what do I really want? And at the end of it, it was great, but the pieces, and I learned a lot there, but I still felt like it was kind of too small for what I really wanted and what I was passionate about. And so to follow that up with like, okay, here's how you can take an idea and apply it to an entire system or entire organization, where you're looking at all the sources of influence and what is the desired result, that one sentence that you want to see happen, and what are the 3 things you need to change? How do those 6 sources of influence affect that change? And if I had to summarize like the nugget to take away from this entire program, it was a quote from that video where the kids were like not washing their hands before eating the Oreos or something. Do y'all know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember.
It's like they put up the posters, or you gotta put your plant kit in there, and if they sanitize their hands, then other people will. There was a quote in that video and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember the exact quote, but it was about like, why do people try to tackle such massive problems with such little effort? Like the approach or the solution and the effort to the solution has to match the magnitude of the challenge. And I was like, that's so true for me, because I would see these like things that I wanted to change in my school or in our district. And then so I would try, and if it wasn't received well, I'd be like, oh, see, the problem's too big. And it wasn't I didn't have a proportionate, investment into the solution as the magnitude of the problem. So I think if I could, to me, it was worth it to hear that, because that's kind of changed my whole perspective and even how I approach, day in, day out in my work setting. But definitely like leading organizational change, that was the come together moment for me.
That was the same class when we talked about the 40X model. And one of the quotes in there that really stuck with me is from, I guess it was, Franklin Covey, when they're writing about that, is when urgency and importance clash, urgency wins. So, the idea about that is you have to focus on those one or two wildly important goals and really plan towards those. So, because those are what's important. If you let all the urgent stuff come up and distract you, it's going to keep derailing your project over and over. So you've got to look at what's really important and narrow that down. So that was another good takeaway from that particular course. That
was a real fun course. I struggled with that course. I will tell you, I struggled big time with that. And, but there was a lot taken out of it, and especially when I go back and I look at all the posts I did, and I'm like, yikes, I did that. I don't remember doing that. That's that man, I tell you, yeah. And Chris, I think you nailed that. Having both those classes back to back, that was big, because I think having those separated, that would have been just kind of like, where are we again now? So, we talked tonight how, Harapnik was like, oh, someone wants to do a podcast. We need to do a podcast, right? And he mentioned something on here. He said, talk about the highs and the lows of the program. So what do you guys think? What were your highs? What were your lows?
My low was digital citizenship.
Oh.
It was interesting content, but it did not feel like it fit with the rest of the program. It was one of those courses that felt like it was just a tag on to, hey, we need to get, another 3 hours of credits in here. What course do we already have on the books? Can we throw at this? That's what that felt like for me. So almost every single thing in there, learning about copyright and learning about fair use and learning about cyberbullying and things like that. Even one of the books we had to do was like the bullying in the schoolyard. That's like, that's not my world right now. So that whole course was a struggle for me, and it just didn't feel like it built towards everything else that this whole program had really built on, which is based on our innovation plan and finding our why and all that kind of stuff. So for me, that was my low. That was definitely the low moment.
Dude, that answer was totally unexpected, because I think I had blacked out that course from my memory. I didn't even remember that one existed. No, I remember full well. That was a lot of work for sure.
Yeah, that was a lot of work.
Response, John. You win.
Yeah, John. That's spot on, because I think we all kind of joked about it, like, what are we supposed to do this week in that class? Because we were kind of lost. I mean, because it did feel tacked on, and I actually remember, like, when we started this class, oh, this is, these are great ideas. This is really cool. And then I thought, wait, hold on. I've grown up in the technology era. All of us have grown up in technology era. We know how to conduct ourselves professionally online. This needs to be directed toward middle school students. And even Dr. Freddie had said that he he taught this class in a high school setting. And I think that's exactly where that class needs to be. Did I get some information out of it? Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of information, but I do agree, John. I do think it was tacked on. Class wise, I would have to say that probably the lowest of the classes. I would agree. Not the lowest of events that happened in classes. But what as far as Chris, what was your low, if you want to share?
Yeah, and I'll take it like a more personal route. But I had my accident. I don't know if you-
Yeah. Which, so we didn't, basically, I think I heard from Carson when Carson was in the program, he had said something. Do you want to share?
Yeah. So it was in the middle of the action research. We had been in for like a week, and to summarize, I was in our neighbor's pool with my kid, and I busted my head open. I don't even remember. I think it was like 15 stitches down to the skull, severed 3 nerves there. I was concussed for a long time, probably about 6 weeks. Or at least coming out of it where I still felt foggy, and that we were having to do like an action research like deal in the middle of that. That was just really hard. But we had Dr. Reed at that time. She was super like gracious. She gave me an extra week just to kind of, because even like looking at a computer was like terrible. So I think the next class too was still tough. And honestly, I mean, there are days, I mean, I trust my wife because she knows me better than anybody else. But there are days where I'll be like, hey, am I like still with it? And she's like, yeah, you're good. So it's probably just a mental thing. But like, I think that whole scenario and trying to do this well, like not to waste my money for grad school, not to just like blow through it, but like really get a lot out of it. That was just tough. So
I'm pretty sure I know what your high moment is. You want to share that?
Also personal?
Yeah, also personal.
Yeah, birth of our 3rd son. We got another little Woods running around.
That's
so
awesome.
That was on September 19th. So accident, concussed. About a month later, number 3 is born, and I'm not sleeping. It's been a deal. Oh yeah, and COVID's happening in the background.
Yeah, dude, it's been the roller coaster year for Chris Woods.
It has been.
No, that's awesome. And congratulations again, man.
Yeah, thank you.
And the fact that you're able to do all this together and continue with the program. I mean, that's awesome.
Well,
really
I'll tell you this, and I want to hear from you guys too. So I'll go ahead and share my highlight. And I feel very comfortable saying this because Dr. H has like, kind of preached this throughout, but like, I don't know what this would have been like without the 4 of you guys. The highlight for sure has been our small group little cohort, from collaborating to sharing resources. Y'all are always throwing your stuff in there. What do y'all think? Give me feedback. And even just like the mental like sanity that it has brought me to pick up the phone and laugh out loud a lot. That you guys are just like good friends and very supportive and just really neat, interesting, like people. So it's really, not to get too savvy, but it has been saving grace, and I'm very thankful for y'all's friendship and like how that all came to be. So
I'll agree with you totally, Chris. That's been one of the really cool things about this program is, those first couple of courses, we didn't really know each other. But I guess it was probably about our 3rd course is when we kind of started our text group a little bit and kind of expanded out. And it was kind of nice because, in every course, there's new faces and names that I had never seen before. Even in this capstone course, which is supposed to be the last class in the program for almost everybody except for Chris, that, there were names in there. I was like, who is this person? I've never seen this person before. But there was that one little group of us, that went from the beginning all the way through pretty much in lockstep, even though you had to sit one course out when you had your son. But the rest of us, we were all there together, and you picked up in the next course right with us. And it's been great. It's been a good group because we get to share ideas and, talk about the discussion posts and texts and with gifts and everything else. And yeah, okay, sometimes you put your phone down, you pick it up and there's 50 messages. I'm sorry, Chris, that happens. But no, it's been good. It's been great getting to know you and Shanitra and Michaela and Nick, and it's been great. We've had a good little group.
Yeah. I mean, I can, that's same here to me. I mean, when the other schools I've gone to, you know, the other degrees I've had, I've never really had close friends. I've had colleagues that, you know, whatever, it seems like we all were competing to be number one. But with this and the way that it's been set up, it's been a lot of fun getting to know everybody. And it's, I mean, the funny thing is that the people who are watching or who are listening to this, they might not know that none of us have ever met each other in person. I mean, that, and that's hilarious. I'm 12 hours away from you guys. And yet I think you're next door, you know, pick up the phone. Hey, John, you know, what do you think about this?
Chris and I practically are next door, and we still haven't met in person yet.
See, and we were just discussing. Yeah, see, there we go. So here's what the plan is. Like I said, man, next go through Texas, stop by Waco, we go get some barbecue. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
You know? But it's been so much fun. And I know the way I work when it comes to schoolwork and stuff like that is I like to do a lot of collaboration. I like to bounce things off of people. And I know if it weren't for this group, I probably would have dropped out a long time ago. And it's because I didn't feel that this was going in the right direction of what I needed to do. But again, pick up, you know, the phone and there's messages about random things, and you know, it's just like, okay, I can keep doing this, it's not that bad, you know. And just, you know, John's encouragement, just follow the steps, dude, look at the example, just follow the steps. All right, yeah, you're right. Don't recreate the wheel, it's still round, let's keep it round, you know. So,
you know what I really think, and if my memory serves me correctly, what really kind of like brought us together, I think at that one point, was when we started going on the movie title run and the discussion board. It was like a back and forth. It's like every week who can make the most, like who can connect it to some, like, when I remember we had Wizard of Oz was in there, Office Space was in there, Princess Bride was in there. It was all over the place. So funny. It's like I couldn't wait to read the discussion board to see what movie Nick had referenced.
I think it was it the Digital Citizenship or something like that, and I pulled out Starship Troopers.
I think you were the only one to do one, and it was like, oh, maybe this is a stretch or something. Oh, that was so funny.
Yeah, the
discussion board's interesting, that's for sure.
That was so good.
And I tell you, man, the discussion boards are, to me, are super brutal. I mean, you know, you guys have seen it lately. I'm just kind of like, whatever, you know, I put it on there, whatever. No sources whatsoever. You know, just I'm not citing anything. I'm just talking. But yeah, it got to the point where I think, John, you were the first one that used it.
Probably.
Yeah, and I was like, no, I got to take this over the top with him. Like, and no one ever commented on them. But I kind of wonder if people just clicked on them. Okay, what did they bring out this time? See, now I got to go back and find.
Yeah, I know. Well, the thing was, I mean, I know that it gets repetitive. It feels repetitive, especially towards the end of the course. But y'all are both such strong writers. And Nick, I know sometimes you don't feel like you are through text message hearing that I'll just threw it together. Y'all are such strong writers. So I appreciate the creativity. And then there's usually like a gut punch or two in there where it like brought it home. So man,
well,
another highlight, movie trivia on the discussion board.
Well, I feel the same about both you guys, Chris. I really do. I feel that both you guys are incredibly strong writers. And I have to step my game up every time.
So from a personal, we've already talked about it. Yeah, the camaraderie of hanging out with y'all and chatting and getting to know y'all and bouncing ideas off of you and discussion boards and this, that, and the other. But as far as the course goes, I think the best for me was actually probably that instructional design and online learning course, where we actually had to put together a course in an LMS. I know a lot of people use Schoology and some use Google Classroom, and my group runs Canvas at Baylor, so I actually built a course in Canvas, and that was really kind of cool, to do something like that, to see all those pieces of the plans that I had come up with up to that point. Got to resurrect the 40X model and, the influencer strategies and our 3-column tables and all of those pieces that we had created up to that point. We got to pull all those back out and now, build an online course with them. And one of the things that I thought was really kind of cool about that same course is seeing what other people had done. Because one of the things that I thought was really interesting is, you were doing sports, but somebody else in one of the other classes was actually doing lifeguarding. It's like they built a 5-week online course all about lifeguarding. And I thought that was just really something kind of cool to see, and, got a chance to poke around in their class and see all that sort of stuff. So to me, that was one of the most interesting classes because it was something you left with very, very tangible. And that was that, 5318 instructional design course. And that was, I really enjoyed that one. I think that was definitely course wise a high point for me.
That was a fun course, and I really enjoyed how that one flowed a lot too. And I had thought about doing that sports class for a long time, but to actually have an opportunity to build it, I was like, whoa, okay, what do I do? So, and that was fun though, and working with Schoology, and like I had said before earlier, that I used bare minimum because I don't know a lot about it. So, but it was a fun class. Yours was based on, like you said, was getting everybody ready for, sorry, dude, I drew a blank on the word I was going to use.
Yeah, e-portfolios.
E-portfolio. Okay, yeah, and it was getting everybody ready to unveil the backpack, right? Is that
Well, that was later on. That's a different course, but yeah. So that first one was all about just, why an e-portfolio, how an e-portfolio, what types of e-portfolios, all those kinds of things were kind of the topic of that course that I used for the 5318. Now, the personal digital backpack was a little bit later on in one of these other courses. And that one was really about, having students use tools that are actually going to benefit them beyond the classroom. There's a lot, hundreds and hundreds of educational apps out there, Kahoot and Quizlet and this and that and the other, but outside of the classroom, how are those ever going to really benefit the students in the real world? And most of the time the answer is they probably aren't. But the idea of the personal digital backpack was, equip your students to use tools that they could use in college or could use in a professional setting, things like Zoom and WebEx and those sort of conferencing type utilities, and publishing platforms like WordPress and, Word, and all these various different tools, things that are actually built on digital literacy at that point, not necessarily just purely educational apps. So yeah, that was another good high point. I was kind of proud of that one.
Yeah, that was,
remembered it.
Yeah, well, no, and I remember when you brought it out, because to me, I was like, whoa. And I think even I sent you a message like, dude, that's awesome. That's all I could think was, because I would have never thought about doing something like that, getting everyone prepared for the future, because to me, it seems like it should just be integrated. But obviously we now have learned over the year that a lot of these kids don't know that stuff. And just to have that digital backpack saying, oh yeah, I can utilize this now. I can utilize Flipgrid. I've never used it before, but I can utilize it now. That to me, that's awesome. And, it's so great to help that out with educators and to have that ready. And dude, that was great. That was just, I don't know why things like that just get my mind. That's really cool. So
thank you. Appreciate it.
5314. We were just
got nothing to say.
Yeah. So we were
I will in about 6 weeks though.
So Chris, this is the course that you missed, but for good reason. You know, we talked about that's good reason on that one. But we were just told tonight that the beloved 5314, where we have to do an expanded literature review, has now been nixed from the curriculum. What are your thoughts, John?
I know Dr. Harapnik said he didn't particularly like 5314. I liked 5314. To me, it was the class where we got to take a look not at what we're doing in our institution, but what other people are doing related to our topic. You know, it's all about looking at what worked and what didn't work at other places. For example, mine was all about e-portfolios. One of the things I looked at was a program at the University of Mary Washington called A Domain of One's Own. It's where they actually give every single student who wants one their own domain and their own web hosting service that they can do whatever they want to with it. And it is provided by the school. And a lot of it is designed to be used as kind of e-portfolio type things. And some of them use WordPress like I used, and but it can be really anything. So to me, that class was really interesting because it forced you to step back from looking at what's good for my institution, what's good for my classroom, what's good for my innovation plan, but to look at what are other people doing that are kind of like doing what I want to kind of do, and learn from that. So while I did not like writing another literature review, the longest one yet, I'm sorry, Chris, since I know this is the course you've got still to go, it was definitely the longest. It did give me a chance to really look at things from the outside perspective. And I liked 5314. I did. I thought it was a good class because it did shift your focus a little bit. So I would much rather them cut digital citizenship from the program than cut 5314 for future people, even if that means you do have to do that other super long literature review.
That's actually, thinking back on it now, it was a lot of reading and it was a lot of work, but there was a lot of information that came out with it. I know that the project I was working on, they had expanded within like the first 7 months of me starting it. They had incorporated a new goalie feature. And so where goalies were now using this virtual reality simulator. And so I reached out to the 30 goalies in the world that have been using this thing. And so I was able to get feedback from them. And I thought that was really cool. But I never would have done that if it weren't for this class. So Chris, you got a lot to look forward to in this class. What are your guys' plans for after this, besides taking a break?
Yeah, I think the next thing on my agenda, we'll take a few months off at least, but EDUCAUSE, which is a big organization in higher education technology, they do various leadership institutes that are multi-week kind of classes. So I'm thinking about signing up for one of those and taking a look at that and seeing what's next. So I guess I can't get enough of the online learning thing now.
Now that you're involved with it, you got to keep going, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. How about you, Chris?
You know, looking beyond the district, I would love to, I don't know as far as like learning, but, you know, we have a Texas conference called TCEA that happens every year. I think I would love to present or get a partner and present at one of those in the coming years. I think that would be really fun to do. So just kind of like, haven't thought too much about it beyond the immediate future at in my workplace, but that's kind of what's on the horizon.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So I mean, if I wanted to leave the classroom and go do what you're doing, Chris, or go do what you're doing, John, what do I need to look for? What title do I need to look for?
Well, my road was probably a little bit different than you might want to take. I left the classroom 19 years ago to come do computer labs and computer lab support at Baylor. So I kind of just got into it purely on that standpoint. I had a technical background. I managed a computer lab in the middle school that I was teaching in at that point. So for me, it was just all right, this is a lab managing job at a higher education institution. But I was only in there for about 18 months before a position opened up in the online teaching team. And that's when I was like, okay, now that looks really kind of cool. So for me, it was get the foot in the door at the institution you want to be in, and then look for the position you want to be in while you're there. So yeah, that was kind of my route. But I would probably look for something a little bit more direct now, particularly since you're going to have your master's here in just another couple of weeks, it seems, before that is done. So, I would be probably a little bit more selective if I were doing it now than when I did it 19 years ago.
Nice. If you're looking to stay, primary or secondary in my kind of role, that's got probably like 4 or 5 different names, and every district kind of tailors it to meet their district's needs. But instructional technology is still a big one that's out there. I don't think anybody else calls it innovation learning, but digital learning coach. I've seen that one. There's like some, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, like Coppell ISD, we work closely with them on a few things. They have a digital learning department, and their staff is called digital learning coach. Instructional coaches, coaching is kind of like a big thing that's happening right now in education at the primary and secondary level, because it's effective, like helping teachers just reflect on their own teaching, helping them identify a goal, helping them strategize on how to meet that goal, and then just reflecting on it after they're done. What's your next goal? Just a sounding board for them, not giving advice or being the expert, but just like helping teachers identify that process. So instructional coach would be another one to look out for. But digital learning, instructional technology, if you want to focus more on tech integration, I think those are the buzzwords.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. That's because it's one of those things where it's kind of like, I love being in the classroom, at least working with the kids I work with. And, but at the same time, I could see myself helping teachers, because that's been the big thing this year. All the teachers I work with the exception of one, who's our math teacher, he's really good with technology. But most of the teachers I've been working with, I've had to help out, hey, do it this way. Hey, try it this way. Hey, let's try this. Let's try that. And it's been kind of a struggle. But it's one of those things where I think that with this background now that we have, from, at least for me, you guys have already been doing it, but at least that this could help out and help kind of guide those teachers through the dark hallway, show them the light at the end of the tunnel, and show them that it's not a candle, it's a big spotlight, and the spotlight's going to open up and it's going to show you the whole world. So it's kind of fun. But guys, hey, again, sorry it went so long, but thank you so much for joining me on this, and and talking about this program. I've had a lot of fun. Obviously, we talked about our friendships that have developed over this course, and it's just been a great 18 months, and it's going to be sad when it's over, and it's going to be relaxing when it's over. But but thank you so much, guys, for joining me on this venture tonight.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Chris.